TV.com. You'll see I'm not alone today. In fact, I've got a beauty queen in the studio with me, Miss Nataleigh Nix. She is your Miss Mississippi Outstanding Teen for 2023. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I know Miss Mississippi is coming up in June. It's always a big summer event. So when were you crowned? When does the Miss Mississippi Outstanding Teen pageant take place?
I was crowned April 23rd, and the nationals competition is going to take place in January of 2024. We don't know where yet, and we're thinking that it's probably going to be the first week of January, but we don't know specifics yet.
So you have to wait almost your entire reign before you go up for the national pageant, where I feel like the Miss Mississippis go to the Miss Americas. She will get crowned in June, and then theirs is usually August, September. Saying. So you've had a long time to sort of get in, get your feet wet, and then start to prepare. So how's it been since April?
Oh my gosh, it's been a whirlwind of activities, but I'm so excited to have been given this incredible opportunity, and I'm going to soak up every minute of it.
You should, and it'll go by really fast, or at least that's what they tell me. I wouldn't know. I've never necessarily had a crown, but your road to this has to be a lot of fun as well, a journey in and of itself to get to this point. So Nataleigh, when did you first get into, I guess, the pageant circuit? Maybe that's the way they call it, or what inspired you to even go for the Miss Mississippi Outstanding Teen?
The funny thing that I like to tell people is I kind of saw myself as an unlikely candidate for the Miss Mississippi Teen competition. When I was younger, I used to struggle a lot with social anxiety. I was an only child, but I always had a passion for singing, so my mom enrolled me in the Princess program for Miss Mississippi, and I got to be a part of that, and I also auditioned for the Junior Performer program for Miss Mississippi when I aged out of the Princess program. And then the year after that, my mom told me that they were going to host the Miss Mississippi's Teen competition, and I thought it would be a great way to get out there, get my name out there, meet tons of new people, and form those connections, and really do what I was afraid to do. So I'm so thankful.
How did you come over your sort of anxieties there, Nataleigh, to get on stage to sing? Because, I mean, it's one thing to sing in the bathroom or maybe sing, in the car with your family, and then, man, it's another thing to have the courage to do it on stage. How did you overcome that?
It's kind of funny because I could sing in front of hundreds of people and it wouldn't faze me. But talking in front of 5 people was where my heart started to race and I started to doubt myself. But just being a part of Miss Mississippi's Teen and doing what I'm afraid of, I kind of had the victim mentality that I wasn't good enough. And through doing what I was afraid to do, I started breaking down those mental barriers for myself. And the funny thing is my platform, AOK, or my Community Service Initiative, as they call it now, as I started to implement performing acts of kindness in my because my social anxiety started to lessen. And it turns out that performing acts of kindness releases the hormones oxytocin and serotonin in the brain. So when you're performing acts of kindness for other people, you're giving back to not only other people, but to yourself, and you're building love and confidence within yourself and developing a healthier mindset.
I love that. I love, too, that you sort of went that route with they do call it Community Service Initiative now. When did you start thinking about that? Was it for the Miss Mississippi Teen competition, or was it part of some of the other pageant circuits that you were a part of?
Yes, and it's kind of a long story. I like to tell people.
We have time. You go right ahead.
I love to tell people that my Community Service Initiative chose me. I didn't really choose it, and it's blossomed into something that I could never have imagined. It really did start 3 years ago when I first became involved with the Miss Mississippi's Teen competition, and I didn't really know what to do. I wanted to have a personal tie to my life, and one of the things I was always passionate about was loving others no matter who they come from, etc. But at that time, my grandfather had been put in the hospital, and I recognized the love that the staff not only showed him, but my grandmother, and they really went beyond their job description to show her compassion when all they had to do was help him physically. And in reality, they helped all of us mentally. And so at first, I started thinking about the groups of people who go unrecognized for their hard work, or who maybe need a kind word, or they need someone to uplift their day. So I started out very small and did cookie jars for the janitors at my school, the secretaries, the counselors. I did some cookie trays for the Madison, Mississippi Fire and Police Department, and I also did some cookie I did, not a cookie tray, but I did, was able to have Chick-fil-A gift cards donated for some of the physicians at UMC. And I started with that, and then I realized that AOK is really about everyone. It's not just about those groups of people. And I wanted to go big. I wanted to make a difference in my community, not just with those small things, but with big things too. And one thing that I recently did a few months ago was I collaborated Madison, and we were able to have a 3-day donation drive for a local organization called Shower Power and a percentage night with Madison Chick-fil-A. And basically I got the whole community involved, and we were able to get around 1,000 donated items and also $1,000 to that organization. And so it was really cool to see all that happen. And then throughout all this journey, we had the journey of my social anxiety and what I figured out with that through my research. So it's just been one ride, but it's been so much fun, and I'm so glad to get to implement my community service initiative throughout the state now.
Well, and I think it's one, though, that we can all be a part of to help you spread, right? Like, I think it's one of those things where if you hear, or maybe you're dealing with some anxiety or having a rough day, just being reminded that you can just do something kind for someone else, or just sort of focus on someone else who may be in need, whether it could be as big as, buying their lunch, or as small as just acknowledging, hey, cute shoes, or whatever it may be, right? And your own day. What age were you? Did someone tell you or diagnose you? I don't know if that's the right word, with social anxiety. I'm just curious how you sort of felt like you fit that particular label, for the lack of a better word.
I wasn't medically diagnosed with social anxiety, and something I always like to tell people is I feel that everyone kind of has a little bit of social anxiety at some point. Some people have it more extreme than others, but there's always that fear of maybe talking to someone you don't know, or maybe you feel like you put them up on a pedestal and you feel like you can't reach them. So I wasn't medically diagnosed with social anxiety, but my parents and I all kind of felt like it was something that I struggled with when other people my age, they didn't struggle in the same way I did. So I was kind of unordinary in that sort of way.
Well, I think, though, but that's good to know, because I feel like parents, grandparents listening, they may have a shy kid at home, or they consider it a shy kid, or doesn't like to, feels nervous or anxious when they have to get in big crowds. And, I don't know if I would recommend putting them all on a stage to sing, but to know that they're not alone, number one, and that you can sort of grow out of that, or may sort of find your way out of that. So how would you reach someone, let's say 10, right? How old are you now?
I'm just turned 17.
Just turned 17.
Almost said 16 there.
That's okay, 17. And then, so like maybe your 9 or 10-year-old self, what would be the advice that you would have given to yourself, knowing what you know now about your shyness or maybe anxiety around crowds of people?
Embrace the journey, and, don't be afraid. I mean, it's easy to be afraid, and you don't have to be perfect. Growing up as a perfectionist, and especially because I was an only child and I felt the pressure of being an only child from my parents, I wanted to be perfect in every single thing that I did. And walking into the interview room and having to speak in front of those judges, I always felt like they were quizzing me, when in reality, it's just a conversation. And every single interaction you have with people around you, it's always a conversation. It's not like they're looking for reasons for you to be wrong. They just want to get to know you. So that's something that I've had to learn, is to embrace the journey, and I don't have to be perfect.
You don't have to be perfect, and you can still do it. If you're afraid, you can still be brave enough to do it, which I'm sure it was terrifying. Do you remember the first time you got up to sing? Do you remember your first pageant?
The first time I sang, it's kind of funny. My mom is the theater teacher at my school. I actually learned to walk in the auditorium, and they were doing Seussical the musical at that point in time, and they had to order a baby kangaroo puppet, and the puppet wasn't going to make it in on time, and her student said, well, why don't you just let Nataleigh be the puppet? So I was in a little pouch from the big kangaroo costume, and I said, hump me too. And that's kind of how it all started. I've just been immersed in singing since then.
Well, I think you broke out of your shell fairly early then,
Yes,
or your pouch, should I say, Nataleigh. And I think you're doing wonderful, and you're off to a great start. And we've got more coming up next with Nataleigh Nix. She is your to a podcast. We are continuing our conversation with Miss Nataleigh Nix. She is your Miss Mississippi's Outstanding Teen for 2023, and she's up to some good things already. But you mentioned, Nataleigh, that this was your third year in the Miss Teen organization, and it is like the feeder into the Miss Mississippi organization, correct? Like in terms of years, how many years can you do the Miss Teen, circuit, if I'm saying the words right or wrong, correct me, and then feeding into bidding for or going for the Miss Mississippi crown? How does that work?
I'm pretty sure that it's from ages 13 to 18, and then the Miss Mississippi competition is 18 to, I think it's 28. I'm not sure. It's a really huge age gap.
Oh, I don't think I realized that 28 sounds so, look at me, almost 40, like 28 sounds so old. No, but I'm
not good with numbers.
That's fine. Math is hard, and it's summertime, so we all get a breather with that. But you started, I guess you mentioned 3 years ago. What inspired you to keep it up, right? Because you keep coming back to sort of this larger competition platform, which would have been the Miss Mississippi Teen one. What every year did you walk away and go, man, I'm going to give it my best shot next year?
It's my belief that if you have a really big goal, it takes several small goals to get there. So I just wanted to make progress every single year and then eventually reach my goal. So I'm thankful to be here.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think people also forget that, one walks away with the crown, but there's so many other things that you can walk away with. That's not always necessarily the definition of success through the pageant sort of system. So even if you would have never gotten the crown, what are some positive things that you gleaned from, I guess, this far, because you still are young in your career. Hopefully you'll go on to the Miss Mississippi route, but in the Miss Mississippi Teen division. Mm-hmm.
During the competition for Miss Mississippi's Teen, one of the things I kept telling myself was, if it's God's plan for me, it's His plan for me. If it's not, it's not. And I've already gained so many important things, especially the conversation skills. Me 3 years ago would never have been able to imagine that would be up here talking to you on a radio interview. That it would have been so surreal to me. And just also the poise, the angles for picture taking. You learn so many things. Let's say you have to be well-rounded in the news. So you're making yourself smarter and more well-rounded.
How do you do that at the ripe age of 17 and stay happy?
Stay happy. Like I said earlier, it's all about enjoying the process.
Yes, well, staying up on the news can be a joy kill real quick. Oh. So I hope you find some balance in that as you move forth. But you have started out, your reign started in April, and so you will go on to the national platform or get the national competition in January. What are your duties as Miss Mississippi's Outstanding Teen prior to that? So your year of reigning, what you out there doing? What's on your, I guess, resume?
Mm-hmm. I have to do a lot of sponsor visits. I have to make several appearances, like enjoy. Right now, I'm also trying to focus on making AOK statewide, prepare my talent and fitness, just make sure that everything is set to go for nationals.
And you don't know when that will be yet,
right.
Which that will sort of come up. Do you know, does the the setup change in terms of how the pageant set up from what you went through with Miss Mississippi Teen, or will it be the sort of same talent, singing, question, or is there like a curveball?
I'm sure that everything should be relatively similar, but we haven't gotten a whole lot of information on more of the specifics dealing with that. So I think it should be the same for the most part.
She's like, if there's a curveball, I haven't been thrown it yet.
Yeah.
We will roll with it, and you will. And I think that's another thing that young women get out of doing these pageants and sort of learning to roll on the fly. I mean, sometimes your shoe breaks or your earring gets lost or you get a tough question or whatever it may be in that sense. You mentioned, though, your community service initiative, the AOK, which Acts of Kindness, which I love. And that I love the acronym for it, the AOK part. How are you planning to make that statewide? How do you plan on sort of taking that and then moving it through all 82 counties?
Right now, I'm really willing to talk to as many county leaders as possible about implementing AOK in their county, whether it's doing a not statewide, but a countywide AOK service project, or if it's implementing it in the school districts. I'm still working out some of the logistics on that right now. We're kind of gearing towards Miss Mississippi Week, and then after that, we're going to figure out more of the things, but also I'm working on getting a proclamation for an AOK Day statewide, and I'm also working with the Madison County Superintendent, Charlotte Seals, to work on an AOK kit.
What date would you have in mind for that? for the AOK sort of proclamation? Is there like a special date other than like your birthday? Would there be like a day you're like, this needs to be AOK Day?
I'm not sure, but I do know that National Random Acts of Kindness Day is February the 17th. So maybe it could be that day, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see.
We've always said here, Rhino and I, that we need to throw in for a Good Things Day. And ours would be June 1st because that's when the show started. So I feel like you need to make sure it has an emotional...
Symbolic.
If it's just to you, I mean, that's totally fine. But dates are important, so
yes,
you got some time to sort of think about that. You also represent Mississippi as the teen ambassador for volunteerism through the Mississippi Commission for Volunteer Service, which ties in perfectly with AOK. Mm-hmm. People forget that volunteering is a great way to get social interaction, to give back and sort of get those boost of happy hormone or happy chemicals that you were talking about. How important is volunteering to you in your personal life?
Oh my gosh, it's so important. It is so important to give back to the communities that gave to us, because there are people out there who are struggling, and it's so important to give to those people because a lot of us, I'm blessed, I've had a blessed life, I've been dealt great cards, but there are other people, who could be homeless. Like I was talking about earlier with Shower Power. I'll tell you a little story about that really quickly. The first time that I met them was from one of my princess's moms, and I remember walking out there on my first day, and I saw a volunteer in an army uniform, and I said something about him. He looked about 25. He was a young man, to the mom, and she said, he's not a volunteer. He was homeless. And that shocked me because I think that a lot of people, there's a stigma around homeless people, and you imagine them to be one way when sometimes they were just dealt the wrong cards in life, and it's hard for them to get back up on their feet. So it's so important to give to those who are less fortunate, because you never know. Sometimes lady luck just doesn't deal the hand. And
it's one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard is, it's hard to hate up close. Meaning that it's hard to have, like when you get up close with those who maybe you feel a certain way about, and you get to know their stories, and you put personal names to, to stereotypes, then it's really hard to hate a type of person or a group of people or specific, when you really get to sort of understand or know where their story is. And some play the tune of the stereotype, but majority of the majority don't. They're individuals who have incredible roadblocks in their life. And the Shower Power, they do things beautifully by through showers and sort of other things. If folks haven't ever heard of them, they're doing really good work.
Yes.
And volunteering though, but people sometimes think, man, it takes too much time. Once I get on a list, they're going to always be asking me to do something. From your experience with the Mississippi Commission for Volunteer Services, do they hound you to volunteer?
I actually just recently became a volunteer, so I haven't had the chance to officially work with them yet, but I'm so excited to see what's going to happen, and I'm sure they won't hound me. I love any opportunity I can take to help people.
You get on an email list, and then they give you out the opportunities. If it fits your schedules and what you're interested in, then you say yes. But I think folks are so nervous about just putting their hat in the bucket or putting their name sort of out there or sort of stepping out, because they feel like once they dive in, they can't regress, and that's not true. I think that they just want you to be a part of it wherever you sort of fit in, or see that something sort of moves you in that way. You mentioned Shower Power. Are there other places you really enjoy giving of volunteer time?
Mm-hmm. There is one organization that I've worked with a little bit in particular. And basically we have to have 10 hours per semester of service, and one of the organizations that I work with through Civinettes is Top Soccer. And what that is you get to play soccer with people who have Down syndrome, and it's really neat to just help them and to just do what they love to do. I met one little girl one time, and we didn't even really play soccer. We just stacked cones because that's what she wanted to do, but she had the best time, and it was really neat to be a part of that.
When I first started T-ball, all I wanted to do was pick the flowers in the outfield. So all I want to do is sit down and play in the flowers and, not have a care in the world. So I totally get that little girl not being into soccer. Well, I'm definitely into what you're standing for, Nataleigh, and your acts of kindness. Where can people follow you or keep up with what you're doing over your reign as Miss Mississippi's outstanding teen?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok, Nataleigh_Nix or Nataleigh.Nix.
All righty. Well, we wish you the best. Maybe you'll make it back here when you're wearing the Miss Mississippi crown.
Oh,
We'll see about that. We'll just forecast that
Hope
into the
That'd be
future
awesome.
for you. But best of luck no matter where life takes you, girl.
Thank
and you
you so
guys stick
much.
with us. We got more for you.